Ladies and gentlemen of the media, thank you for joining this press conference called by the Alliance for Change, the first since the 2025 polls. Today, we will have presenters Mr. Kemraj Ramjatan, seated right next to me, to my left, Dr. Vincent Adams, who will be joining us online, Mr. Nigel Hughes, who will be in the vacant chair in, let's say, another 60 seconds. And of course, David Patterson, chairman of the party. We will start with a statement by Mr. Ramjatan.
Thank you very much, Beverly, and thanks, members of the press who are present and who are online. The Alliance for Change maintains its commitment to improving governance in Guyana. Despite the results of the 2025 polls, we remain a viable and valuable player in the political landscape. This was reinforced when the National Executive Committee met on September 13th and at an emergency meeting on September 19th. We have initiated our analysis of our present situation, and over the weekend, we will be engaging our broad membership on an analysis of our present situation and the way forward. As you are aware, we have received a letter from Mr. Nigel Hughes resigning as leader of the AFC. While we continue to engage Nigel, the chairman of the AFC, David Patterson, will be carrying out the functions of leader of the party. This is in keeping with our constitution. Nigel remains a member of the AFC. The leadership team, our members and supporters, hold him in the highest regard. As we rebuild our beloved party, we do so in a political environment that has changed much since the AFC was birthed in 2005. We have a fairly young electorate. Guyana is now an oil-producing nation with revenues that outstrip anything we have seen before. But while much has changed, too much remains the same. The 2025 election cycle shows clearly the urgent need for constitutional reform. Reports of the observer missions highlight the need for campaign financing legislation, an independent media landscape, and very importantly, changes at the Guyana Elections Commission. As a party, we will continue to advocate for these changes. While these are great times for the AFC, we see light on the horizon. Our members remain loyal to the party. Our supporters have been calling to re-engage. Local and international agencies continue to engage with the AFC too. We are still seen as a vital player in Guyana's politics. We will learn from our past and come back stronger and better. As we have said before, the AFC is here to stay. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Ramjatan. We will now invite Dr. Vincent Adams, who is online. Dr. Adams will be addressing two areas of concern in relation to the oil and gas.
Thank you, Beverly. You hear me? You hear me, Beverly?
Yes, I am, sir.
Okay, good. Thanks. Welcome to our news media as usual. In today's Stabrook News, Christopher Ram, of course, in his usual brilliance, captured in one headline the two topics I'll be covering today. His headline was, "While Guyana celebrates Hammerhead, America investigates," meaning that I'll be covering the Hammerhead, the Hammerhead approval, approval of the Hammerhead project, which is the seventh project, and of course the concerns raised by the three veteran and influential senators of the United States, Mr. Senator Sheldon Whitehouse, Senator Chris Van Hollen, and Senator Jeff Markey. So let me start with the senator's investigation of what many, most notably Christopher Ram and the OGGN, meaning the Oil and Gas Governance Network, and many others have been calling an apparent tax fraud perpetrated by Exxon with complicity of the Guyana government. And here is how it works. Exxon, of course, we know they do not pay any taxes, but Exxon provides a tax, they prepares a tax return to the government of Guyana. The minister takes out that money from the oil fund and pays Exxon taxes to the GRA. The GRA then turns around and issues a receipt or certificate in Exxon's name. And Exxon then goes and uses that tax certificate to claim a tax credit in the United States. Let me repeat that. Exxon gives Guyana a bill, basically a tax bill as to what the tax would be. We, meaning the minister, turns around and pays that tax bill to the GRA on behalf of Exxon, meaning that Exxon doesn't pay any taxes. We turn around now and we give Exxon a receipt saying, Exxon, you pay these taxes. Exxon takes that receipt that it didn't pay any taxes for and submit it to the United States government for the, and claim a tax credit for it. So that's the scheme. Now, what the patriotic Guyanese, recognizing that this PPP government has been so feckless and subservient to Exxon, have been making this an issue for years. And with being ignored by the government, Exxon, OGGN, with some high-powered professionals, met with Senator Whitehouse in this last February and conveyed their complaints. Not only did Senator Whitehouse decide to go it alone, he got two other senior senators on board, which means that it's convincing. And that was the news in the headline here recently, that they're questioning this scheme. And the reason why they've gotten involved, because their concern is that the taxpayers are subsidizing Exxon. Remember now, they're not paying any taxes, but they're claiming taxes for money they did not pay. So the taxpayers, which means that the taxpayers are being robbed of money. So congratulations, first of all, to the OGGN, specifically Mike Prasad and our former ambassador, Dr. Kenrick Hunt, who was one of Guyana's past ambassadors, who represented OGGN at this meeting with the senator. And of course, we know Exxon enjoys taking advantage of Guyana, but now let them. They're gonna have to deal with the United States government. And of course, unlike his predecessor Rod Henson, Rutledge is already coming up with his disrespectful nonsense to kerfuffle the Guyanese people, including, and you guys notice, and I kept this picture here, when they celebrate. This here is a picture of them celebrating. Minister Barrett and Rutledge, and guess what they're doing? They're almost trampling on the Guyana flag that is dragging on the floor. This is disrespectful. It's disgusting and just unpatriotic. But I'll leave that for another day. But imagine this guy is now saying, this guy Rutledge is now saying that the money that we were entitled to, the royalty and our production sharing, the profit sharing that we earn, this man Rutledge is now saying that that is taxes. He's now claiming that to be taxes. I mean, there's nothing more ridiculous. But this guy has always disrespected Guyanese people since he came here, unlike Rod Henson. So he's gonna let him deal with the United States government. And since he came on board, by the way, he's gotten rid of all of the guardrails that we, meaning the coalition government, put in place with Rod Henson, and probably the reason why Rod was removed. But anyway, this is a good segue into the other topic about the approval of Hammerhead. This is nothing to be for the Guyanese people to be excited about. It's the same old, same old. It's the same people in charge at the wheels, Barrett and Minister Barrett and Jagdeo, same set of people. And I want to start by using Jagdeo's own patented words when he was in opposition. Here's what the man said. He said, "They sold out our patrimony to foreigners. Every time there's a fine out there, our people should be sad because nothing comes our way. We are going to renegotiate those contracts because that's not what we had in mind. There is no taxes, no ring fencing. Well, folks, we all know the story. The guy has backpedaled on his promise, which was just a farce to start with when he promised it. So again, it's the same old, same old. Um, he let me tell you what is still in place. They're celebrating Hammerhead. Hammerhead is even going to make it worse. Number one, they're still hiding the reserve estimates, which increase the amount they keep from the decommissioning. Imagine we did the 11 billion barrels that they declared. That was after the 26th discovery. They've had, I think, they're hiding the numbers, but I would imagine it's almost 20 additional discoveries. And they're telling us that they do not have, they're still trying to calculate. Before, within that 11 billion barrels, in that first 26 discoveries, you folks remember, we were getting an update every single time a well was drilled. We were getting an update. But in going on 4 years now, we've not gotten any update, even though we've gotten about 20 new discoveries. Now, we're still hiding the reserves, and the reserves, by the way, impacts the decommissioning that they will be deducting today. Now, this hammerhead will not go into operation until 2029, but they will start deducting the billions of dollars that this thing is adding up to in decommissioning costs today. And that decommissioning cost, by the way, folks, is going into an Exxon account that Guyana has no control. We get no benefits out of it. Exxon does what they want with that money. They're still not paying any taxes. We're still getting the 14.5%, while Exxon is getting 85.5%, which is 6 times what we're getting. And they will still be indulging in the same lawlessness in not complying with the environmental impact assessment by pumping above the safe operating limit, putting Guyana and the Caribbean at risk of financial bankruptcy without liability coverage, all because of greed. And they're still keeping the 9 days deployment time for the capping stock, tripling what we had for 3 days, which makes it, giving it an extra 6 days of flow into the Gulf of oil spill into the ocean if there's an oil spill. And they're still indulging in unlimited flaring and water dumping. And lastly, up to recently in the headlines, the question was asked, when will Guyana be getting their real 50% in revenues? And the reason why they cannot answer that simple question, they know the answer. The answer is never, never. Mark my word today. It will be never, because we've got now with Hammerhead on stream, the capital cost alone, I'm not counting operation cost, it's in the tune of 65 billion US dollars, which has to be paid off every month in that cost oil. And it's going to go above 100 billion very soon with the other projects that are coming on board. Every month, which is when they do their accounting, that cost oil comprised of that capital cost and operation cost and taxes and everything else. But they have been hiding those numbers from us. We do not know how much money they're paying off. Like when you buy a house, there's an amortization schedule that tells you how much you're paying in interest or how much you're paying off from the loan. They're hiding that number. So they know what it is, and they know it's going to be almost impossible for them to pay it off in any time soon, especially without ring fencing. And then, of course, the 75%. A lot of people believe that they're capped at that 75% cost. That is not the case. We do not know if it's costing really 90%. So let's assume it's really costing 90%. That 15% is carried over every month and every month. So it's going to be almost impossible for us to pay off. But we're going to and just like the lawsuit that Christopher Ram has, they're hiding information, and we are demanding that they release information such as the reports, the quarter reports that shows those numbers, and the field development plans. Thank you, Beverly. Not hearing you, not hear you, Nigel.
Vince?
Yeah, hear you now.
Okay, so good afternoon, members of the press. I've just come to clarify a couple aspects of the resignation last week. I want to reiterate that this is born out of my complete and absolute responsibility for the results. I appreciate the gracious comments that came from the party in relation to collective responsibility. I continue to be dedicated and a member of the Alliance for Change, and my full support is behind David Patterson in his position as leader of the party. And I am certainly going to be around to assist the party in its analysis of what has happened. But it is a time for the change of the guard, and I just want to affirm my support for the new leader of the Alliance for Change, and thank, most importantly, all the persons who supported both the party and myself during the last year. And this is a time for rebirth, reassessment, and it's a new time in the country's future. Thank you.
Thank you, Nigel. Ladies and gentlemen, we will now have a statement from Mr. David Patterson.
Thank you very much, Nigel. Thank you. You remain an extremely important member of the Alliance for Change. And just for clarification, I'm still the chairman, and I'm just interim, performing the duties of the chairman until our next national conference. The party, of course, as Cameron has indicated, this weekend we'll have a wider discussion with our membership, and at the end of all our consultations, the party will make a collective decision on how we go forward. Of course, our national conference is statutorily due in June 2026, but we can call it at any particular time. So just another bit of clarification. Substantially, I wanted to address the question of GCOM. Now that the elections has been over, there's been varying reports as to the functioning of GCOM. I think that it's important now that the spotlight should not be removed from GCOM. It's time, the time is now for GCOM to start implementing several reforms born out of the experiences of the electorate, as well as the recommendations of the various observer missions. For the last 5 years, the opposition have been calling for biometrics. Early on this year, the chairperson, Ms. Claudette Singh, indicated that biometrics is not only feasible, it's also necessary, and it's also the way to go. So now that we have completed elections 2025, the process for biometrics should commence immediately. There should be no delay. The chairperson said that the reason why it was not implemented for the 2025 election, the time was against them. In that light, the Alliance for Change would be paying keen attention to Budget 2026, which must include a substantial provision to cover the process of implementation of biometrics in GCOM. We have also, as a party, commenced engagements with the opposition parliamentary parties since, as it's widely accepted, we're not unknown. We are not in parliament on this particular session. And we've commenced discussions with them with a hope and with our support that they can immediately bring a motion demanding that GCOM be funded to implement biometrics. The international observers have observed the unfair advantage that the PPP has had during the elections, the commingling of government and state funds in their campaign. We've also would like the opposition parties to also table a motion or a draft bill to eliminate this from any future elections. A draft bill addressing campaign financing, a clear and accountable route going forward. We, as a party, and I think the entire country, are concerned, and this is on the larger scale, more in the constitutional area, the composition and the functioning of GCOM as a constitutional body. There have been proposals submitted by the Alliance for Change and other stakeholders for the inclusion of other persons other than political parties into the commission. The recommendation was to allow, expand GCOM to include 2 or 3 members of civil society chosen by a transparent process. And we do hope that this shall be looked at in the future. The formula for GCOM was derived sometime in the 90s. I think the Carter formula, it was called and enshrined in our Constitution. It has long outlived its usefulness. And we do think as a modern country, with the resources that we have, a more inclusionary, representative GCOM should be implemented. We've also made recommendations before to include term limits for the chairperson, as well as the commissioners of GCOM. We recommended, Alliance for Change would have recommended that a commissioner serves no more than 5 years, eligible for reappointment, and the chairperson serves 7 years, but they should not be eligible for reappointment. We find that by rotating the commissioners and the chairpersons, we may have a better representation and faster implementation of the various policies and recommendations made by everyone. There were other recommendations which, during our discussions pre-2025, that the GCOM Commission had said that they would look favorably upon, but unfortunately never implemented any of them, which included cameras. In January of 2025, the Commission as a whole said how they were examining, including cameras in the various polling areas. Obviously, that never bore any fruit. And then, of course, the matter of not only biometric, electronic voting. I mean, biometrics, it can be in 2 stages. It can be as a source, as a method of identification and confirmation that you are the particular voter. But in this era of modern era, where you hear every single day that the government are proposing single windows, electronic application for passports and various other government services, the time is up that we move to, like most other countries, electronic voting and tabulations. So those are the recommendations we have put that we will be advocating here publicly in the public domain. And then we will also try to collaborate with the parties in Parliament to see if they can, and with our support, move these matters in the Parliament. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. David Patterson. Ladies and gentlemen, media. Ladies and gentlemen, media, we will now open up for questions to any member of the panel here on matters raised or any that you may have an interest in having addressed. I see a hand up. Davina, please go ahead.
Hello, good afternoon. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
All right. Davina Bagat with Kaiser News. My question is really for Dr. Adams. I'm not sure if he addressed this. Forgive me, but I joined a bit late. I had some trouble joining. Dr. Adams, this week, 3 U.S. senators wrote to Exxon about the company's tax arrangements with Guyana. With your experience in the sector, I wanted to know what might be the likely outcome of this issue.
Yes, Davina, and I covered it. Sorry that you missed it. But nevertheless, this area is very serious. A senator, and of course, OGGN was even concerned that they weren't gonna, of course, senators meet with folks every single day. And but when they pay attention, it means that it's serious. And not only did the Senator Whitehouse take it upon his own, he co-opted two other senior, very senior senators. Trust me, I had to deal with one of them, but and who were no nonsense set of folks, and he co-opted them. And the big issue is that, of course, it's not about Guyana. It's about what they believe to be a loophole that Exxon are even beyond the loophole. It's very questionable as to whether this is legal or not, as to, when they submit a certificate that they did not incur expenses for Exxon. It was Guyana who paid the taxes, and Guyana gave them a receipt saying that Exxon paid the taxes, and Exxon took that receipt to the IRS in the US government and claiming credits, I'm sure, in the millions or billions of dollars eventually. And what the are saying, this here is robbing the taxpayers of the United States of America, not Guyana. Of course, that's another issue in terms of the contract that allows them to do that. But this here is a very serious matter. When senators, especially more than one of them, are taking up an issue, it's very serious. And of course, they have sent the 7 questions to Mr. Darren Woods, the head of Exxon, and he's got a deadline to respond. And then the next thing I expect, based on that, there will be an investigation, or they might turn it over to the IRS or whatever. But this is a serious matter. They are taking it very seriously, Davino.
Thank
Just a
you.
quick follow-up, please.
Mm. Go ahead.
Doc, thanks. Dr. Adams, I wanted to know what might be the likely outcome. Is Exxon likely to face penalties in the US? I'm not sure. I know you worked with the Department of Energy there before, so I'm not sure if you can speak to what might be the outcome of this matter.
Well, like I said, they're taking it seriously, and I'm not I'm sure I'm not a tax expert, but they're going to pass it on to the right tax folks. And interestingly, the two people that met with Senator Whitehouse, Mike Prasad, and like I said, Ambassador Dr. Kendrick Hunt, the guy, the person, Mr. Senator Whitehouse brought in at his tax expert, his financial expert in that meeting. And if he is taking actions upon it, he has seen something, and even look at the tone of the letter that was published, or the comments coming from the senators, it's again very serious. I don't know what the outcome will be, obviously, because I'm not part of that investigation team, and they're going to have the right people to determine. But these guys are much knowledgeable in these issues than I am, and they've dealt with it before. And if they did not see that there was something wrong here, they would not have been pursuing it.
Thank you, Dr. Adams. Any other questions?
Yes, Dr. Adams and Shabral, just to follow up, the two gentlemen you named as having met with Senator Whitehouse, to what extent did their interaction trigger the letter to Mr. Woods? And secondly, what scope is there for any of the Guyanese players, so to speak, to testify before any committee or other judicial body in the United States dealing with this matter?
Well. First of all, I think a lot of what you saw in the letter, a lot of it came from the two gentlemen who represented OGGN, by the way, which is the organization that has been pushing this along with Christopher Ram and others, as Davino fully well knows. But so OGGN was well prepared, to make sure before that meeting that the OGDN was well prepared. So all the information that you hear coming out from these three senators was information provided by the OGGN. So they played a major part in that information that is now being, in the comments made by the senators and the issues raised by them. Now, in terms of participation of Guyanese as witnesses, again, there's several options that could be taken by the senators. within the laws of the United States. And of course, I am not in that area, but I'm pretty sure that there could very well be possibilities, especially with government officials and who sign these receipts, etc. Just from my limited, common sense, may come in to have to answer questions eventually, depending on where it goes. I don't know where it's going to go in terms of the investigation, but yes, I can see that as a possibility, Dennis.
And Mr. Hughes, could you explain? You said in your remarks concerning your resignation that you'll be staying around. What does that mean? That you will still remain leader pending the next decision-making body of the party finding a new leader? What do you mean by staying around?
Not at all, Dennis. Let me be very clear. I have resigned as leader. By staying around, I mean I will be available to assist the party in its deliberations going forward. And in any way that I can be useful to them in their deliberations, I am available. So that is what I meant. But I want to be very clear that certainly not in a leadership capacity until the next NEC elections now.
Swatwala Marshall, a news source. Mr. Hughes, the party has performed poorly at the elections. Do you think you've resigned? You said you take personal responsibility for that, but have you done a preliminary review of the party's performance? And I noticed the issues that Mr. Patterson referenced to, but what are some of the other factors that may be responsible for the party's performance at election? What could have been done differently? Do you think that the party's failure to maybe coalesce with the APNU is among the factors? And is it that the door is completely shut when it comes to your resumption of leadership of the party? I noticed you said, I have resigned.
A few things. One is I think it would be improper of me to comment on the reasons when the party is deliberating on that. And it certainly would be highly improper of me to comment when the leader is here, because he is the person who's responsible for addressing issues that might have adversely affected the performance of the Alliance for Change. So I don't want to comment on those things because the party hasn't started to deliberate as far as I know. And I certainly think that that's an internal matter for the party. And if the leader of the party, Mr. Patterson, thinks that should be addressed, it's a matter for him. But it's not for me to make those comments now. Highly inappropriate for me to do that.
Is the door completely shut? And maybe I should restructure the question. In arriving at the decision to resign from the leadership of the party, what are the factors that you took into consideration?
That's a pretty easy question. If you're the captain of the ship and the ship sinks, you're responsible. It doesn't matter whether the first mate didn't wake up or the groundsman, didn't serve the breakfast on time. You are responsible. And perhaps where I come from, it may not be, people are confused, but that's the reality of it. You don't barely lose a match. You either lose a match or win it. And in the legal profession, sometimes you win, sometimes you lose. But at the end of the day, the responsibility is mine. So it wasn't a question of factors other than the fact that for the first time, the Alliance for Change does not have a parliamentary seat. And it clearly was a rejection of my leadership. So that is the factor. It's pure responsibility. And as I said to you before, I think it would be improper for me to comment until the party has had an opportunity to discuss it. And I think anything in relation to the reasons, Mr. Patterson or whoever he identifies should address that.
And I think there was a press statement that said that they were working to see that you
and that is
they say, okay, at the meeting that is upcoming, that yes, we understand that the party did not perform as expected, but we still want Mr. Hughes to lead this party. Is it that you are prepared to say, yes, I'm willing to heed to their calls and I'm going to, yes, return as leader of the party, or it's completely shut? You don't want to be leader.
Forgive me for appearing to be formal. I haven't met with that group yet. And for me to comment in advance would be premature and I think inappropriate again. until I've had the privilege of meeting with the group and listening to what they have to say, I think it'd be highly inappropriate for me to respond to that publicly, and I haven't met with them. So that's where it is. So Mr. Patterson is the leader, and those questions I think he will address. Again, it's inappropriate for me. I've made it very clear as captain of the ship sank. I am responsible. Classic Guyana statement: post-mortem, don't bring back the dead. So that's where we are.
You speak to if there was a preliminary assessment of the party's performance, and what are some of the factors that may have led to its performance?
Well, yes. So as Kamrat read in his statement, we had two NEC meetings. At the first NEC meeting, we went through the electoral results region by region comparatively on a granular level, not on a granular level, but I mean an overview. We agreed and that we'll have a wider general membership meeting, and this occurred this weekend. And members I've seen the first draft. We've asked them to submit their SWOT analysis, you know what I mean, and we're going to compile it and put it into a matrix, I mean, for strengths, weaknesses, I mean, opportunities and threats, a SWOT analysis, and that'll be done this weekend. We have a team. We have a team who are right now doing a data analysis polling station by polling stations. It has thrown up some interesting results, and we will be presenting that. We want to hear from our younger members, because they will, and they've already indicated they would like to be more active, and I've already indicated that is music to my ears. And then of course we will chart our way forward. It's a long, hard, it's a mammoth undertaking, but I think as a group, we've all committed to it. Kamrat has indicated that that individuals and organizations, local and international, have contacted us and has volunteered without the unsolicited to work with the party after we finish our analysis to ensure that we remain viable. We've met with some of our RMCs, you know, I mean, the RMC in Region 9 were particularly, even though we didn't do well, they immediately said wherever, in any village, if they found two persons voted for the Alliance for Change, they're going to look for the two persons and start with them. That's first thing the man said. So I mean, once long as there's two, there are more. It's just the messaging. So it's a long process. We're committed to it, as Nigel said, with everyone hands on deck. And we have to listen to the electorate. You know, I mean, the electorate voted, as I've said publicly before, on questions, bread and butter issues. You know what I mean, and we will look at that. We've noted, you know what I mean, the PPP, and one of the reasons we're doing a data analysis is because there's a lot of concessions and I don't know, PPP propaganda, I would say. Yes, the PPP claiming to, not claim, they received the most votes in say, Region 4. But when you look at Georgetown in particular, they lost votes collectively. They made tremendously good gains in East Bank and East Coast. In South Georgetown, the APNU got 42%, Win 30, PPP 24%. I mean, and then we've been able to, we're drilling down to where that 24% is, and to derive a plan. Same thing in North Georgetown. So in Georgetown, as per se, as a municipality, if you look at it, the PPP are only able to gain 33% So the idea that they can win Georgetown is not really isn't borne out by the numbers. So we have a long way to go, but we're willing to go.
The partnership.
Good afternoon, everybody. Adam Harris here. Two quick questions. One for Mr. Ramjadan. Sir, in your opening statement, you said that the party base remains loyal. However, the polls reflected something that I think is different. The figures just didn't add up unless you're admitting that you have a small party base. And if I may ask the other question, sorry, and if I may ask the other question, and this is for both Mr. Pat, for anybody. One, I don't know if it was a professional survey, but there was the suggestion that the failure of APNU and the AFC to arrive at a coalition resulted in a low turnout at the polls for both parties. Could you comment, sir?
Well, look, yes, indeed, in my opening paragraph, I indicated that we did badly, and indeed, there has been a seismic shift of voter pattern, as it were. But that does not necessarily, Adam, mean that we are going to go out of the scene. We didn't, in view of over the years, probably do the necessary things to expand the membership base. But whatever it is, from what we are hearing now from a lot of people, international organizations, local organizations, and our general membership that has stayed the course over the 20 years, that indeed we should be there. And we will have to make sure that we incorporate lots of youths who have been with the party. And of course, you will need the mentorship to come from somewhere. And it is indeed in that context that I made the statement. So yes, we did badly. There's no doubt about that. The results reflected that. But that does not necessarily mean that we're going to just walk away from the political landscape. We have quite a number of people to mentor. And quite frankly, if I may say this, even those who are parliamentarians now have been asking for mentorship from at least myself at a personal level, and in relation to so many others that are senior leaders of our party. I'm certain they too will be asking for mentorship at that level. Remember, the opposition is very new, the parliamentarians. And so I wouldn't want to give that up, although of course, as I had indicated since our last national conference, that I'll be coming off. But you just can't come off like that, Adam. Your presence is necessary, especially in these very challenging times. And I do not want this country to become what is called an elective despotism, that is an elective one-party state. You need people to ensure that they're holding government to account. And that requires some of the experienced members that were doing that in Parliament to now still stay there and ensure that accountability.
I think Uncle Adam also asked about the the failure of the two parties not to coalesce. I had also asked about that. I don't think you responded to that. But on the issue of mentorship, and you said that you've spoken to the new members of parliament with respect to drafting a bill that would allow for to address campaign financing and for a motion to deal with biometrics and funding for GCOM, or a bill, not a bill, but funding for GCOM and some other things that you referenced to. Could you say which of the parties that AFC's met with to date, and who are some of the incoming MPs that would have asked for membership? Is it that Is the party prepared to provide any sort of advisory service or to win in particular?
Right. So on the very first one, on the question of coalition, the, I've heard the leader, the APNU, make that as his first off the cuff remark that the low turnout can be attributed to lack of coalition, lack of a coalition, and that is a popular sentiment, but we have to really start operating with some a bit more empirical data. I don't know the poll which Adam is referring to, but I have encouraged my colleagues to let us do a post. There were several polls done, but let us do a post-election poll, and we're looking at that if we can gather the funds together. So I can't say yea nor nay, Adam. It is a popular sentiment. I don't know, a lot of persons have said that to me personally or not, but we don't know if that is the underlying reason. As a question, let me clarify. I met with not the, with the leader of the APNU's parliamentary team. And so that is the meeting that I was referring to. I can, and on the question of mentorship, well, I don't think we would say who it is, but I can say this, that several of, particularly in the regional level, several of our members have reported since the very first NEC meeting that they have been contacted primarily by members of WIN who are first-time regional councillors. And the party, this is at the meeting on the September the 17th, has given them the go-ahead to meet and assist in any way possible, because obviously we would like, effective opposition representation. And I think that is an across the board approval. But I know for sure that I know it out in, well, I wouldn't call the regions because you could probably narrow down the persons individually, but in at least 4 regions, we have actually held meetings, including right in the same building, with members from that party to give them, because they'll be going into the regional councils for the first time, to lend whatever experience that we would have gained over our time in the regional councils. So hopefully that answers your question.
Yeah, let me just add that those seeking membership, mentorship, also include some PPP parliamentarians. Thank you very much.
Mr. Patterson,
Have a sit
um,
down with the incoming leader of the opposition. And I know Mr. Patterson referenced 3 areas that they would like to see addressed in Parliament, but are there other issues that you would love to see him address when he assumes that position?
First up, the leader of the opposition is a constitutional position. We have, as a party, interacted with, since our formation, with all leaders of the opposition, commencing with Robert Corbyn. I think after Robert Corbyn was David Granger. And then there was Barrett Jaglio, probably the most polarizing political individual, but he did, out of due respect, in his position as leader of the opposition, we interacted with him. Joe Harmon, as well as Aubrey Norton. So yes, we will be interacting with the leader of the opposition. That's the constitutional president. I think he is number 5 on the electoral list of standings, the president, prime minister, I think the chancellor, the speaker, and then the leader of the opposition. So we can't run away from that fact. We also discussed it would be unwise for the opposition not to engage with the leader opposition, not the person, the position, the holder of the position of leader opposition. So the answer to that is yes. And there are several issues which we would, other than GCOM, which has to be addressed, which goes through the leader of the opposition. They're important appointments. Right now, GCOM is about to recommence continuing registration. The opposition, through the leader of the opposition, has to field scrutineers in all 10 regions. We have to have a discussion on that. There's several, the Constitutional Reform Committee, our Nigel was our member, our nominee on that. He has resigned admirably and honorably to allow the new leader of opposition to make his appointments. You know what I mean? We still think he's the best person available, and and should there be a meeting, well, I'm saying it publicly now that we probably say to the leader of opposition that we have the best here. Don't throw away the baby with the bathwater. There's several other important areas that has to be addressed via the leader of the opposition's office. So yes, we will be doing that.
Dennis?
Mr. Patterson, are you hearing me?
Yes, Dennis.
Yes. Okay. I want to know what was the outcome of the polls on the question of the chances of the coalition of the AFC and the APNU contesting together.
No, sorry. I set out that I'm encouraging my colleagues. Let us to do a post-election poll. We haven't done it. I mean, I know Adam Harris has referenced a poll which I'm unaware of, but I do think for us to go forward, we should do some sort of post-election, a public post-election poll, so that we can't assume what the electorate want. You know what I mean? We have to, so it's a new political paradigm and we have to adopt. And I mean, if failure to adopt means that all the end result will be failure. So I've encouraged, and I will continue encouraging my opposition colleagues to do a poll collectively, if they so.
So you think there was no pre-election poll?
You're asking me a pre-election poll. I think we discussed that on several occasions. There's a pre-election poll which always indicated that persons were in favor of a coalition, and they were in favor of certain persons heading the coalition. But we gave our best, and unfortunately, that did not materialize, and we are where we are today.
Any other questions? Well, ladies and gentlemen of the media, I do sincerely thank you for joining us for this press conference, and I do wish you all a very safe weekend. Thank you again, and thank you to my panel, Nigel Hughes, David Patterson, and Kemraj Ramjatan, and of course, Dr. Vincent Adams online.
Thank you, Beverly.
Thank you.
Thanks, Bev.